Hello everyone and welcome to the very first official episode of Wrestling Reverb. I am Josh, and it's going to be a little bit of a rocky kind of episode because I'm still trying to get my feet on exactly how I want to approach this and do this. But I have a few different things I want to go in my head. First things first. Let's get right into something. I am recording this about 3 hours removed from the end of SmackDown Live. And first of all, I want to go right in and say SmackDown is, for me and for a lot of the internet, I guess, wrestling community, it's the better show. It's just a little bit more fast-paced. It seems to not feel so dragged out because of the format, the 2-hour format. And Raw sometimes, without taking away what's good about Raw, because there is a lot of good about Raw, sometimes it can feel like such a chore just to get through it. I'll be the first to admit that I watch every Raw, every SmackDown, every week. I don't really miss a show too often. I try not to at all. Even if I don't get to watch it live, being in Australia, it is during like the mid-morning when it airs. So, you know, if I'm at work or whatever it may be, I don't watch it live, but I don't even read internet spoilers, which is hard to avoid in this day and age. But so I don't even read internet spoilers, so I try to watch the show for what it is. Don't try and get anything spoiled for me, so then I'm like, oh, this is, this can be missable, this is not, or whatever it may be. So SmackDown to me, and I think to a lot of people, it's just a lot more fast. It's a lot. The pace is so much better. It seems to be sometimes with the pace though, with the rushing, it can rush and it can sometimes be like we're going a little too fast. But I think that keeps people in their seat at the edge of their seats as well. Sometimes it can go either way. But with Raw, you have to stretch out. You have to have you generally have your longer matches. You generally have you're seeing more of the same person multiple times through the show, because there's just not enough. Well, I wouldn't say enough content, because there's always enough content to fill the time. I guess it's the amount of interesting content to fill the time. But anyway, so I watched SmackDown. I thought it was a good show. Last week, SmackDown really kicked ass. Like, it was so good last week. Every single segment, every single match was just... It seems on SmackDown that everyone is generally trying to outdo one another, which is something that wrestling in general lacks now, is that everyone seems so... I wouldn't say wrestling in general, I'd say WWE in general, is people become complacent in the spots that they've got. But as opposed to Raw, where I feel like the talent know that they have that spot and they know they can keep that spot to a certain degree. You've always got to be on your A game, but they know that they can keep their spot. Where on SmackDown, it seems like everyone's just trying to make the whole show enjoyable, make every segment better than the last. So if you look at this week's SmackDown, Randy opened up and everyone kind of feels that Randy's a better heel than a face, in my opinion. I see that way. I'm not the biggest Randy Orton fan. I never really have been, and I've watched wrestling for 18, 19 years. I've never really been the biggest Orton fan. That being said, credit where credit's due, he kicked off SmackDown tonight, and it was a good promo. And like, he does shine in the heel role, as I said, and you can tell that he enjoys playing that more so than being a face. He can get a little stale as a lot of baby faces do, quickly. His promo, though, was so good. His attack last week on Jeff Hardy was out of this world. That when he put his finger in his ear, and that was really something else. It was, I don't know, Randy, when he's on, he's really on. But you can tell when Randy, you can tell when Randy isn't enjoying it as much. He's just kind of there for whatever reason. But his promo this week was so good. You can see where they're kind of, it kind of seems like SummerSlam, it'll be Shinsuke, Randy, and Jeff Hardy. That should be good, I think, anyway. SummerSlam always has bigger matches, of course, being the biggest show of the year. But I feel like, when you're leading up to any pay-per-view, you kind of are like, these stories are really hitting the nail on the head. Like, you're invested. And then there's other times where you're like, I'm not really caring that much about anything. Like, I felt going into Extreme Rules, there wasn't really that much to look forward to with anything. Like, kind of everything was kind of stagnant, and it kind of felt like Extreme Rules was waiting. They were waiting to get Extreme Rules out of the way to build to SummerSlam. Which, that happens a lot in wrestling. You go through peaks and valleys. But SummerSlam this year, I feel like it really is like you've got Ronda and Alexa, and you've got, now we know we've got AJ Styles and Samoa Joe. I'll talk about that in a minute. And we've got, Brock and Roman, which everyone is so split on, I say split, but it's more of a, like an 80%, 20% kind of split, with more people like, why is this happening again? But SummerSlam, it's building, towards something, a good show. But yeah, back to SmackDown, after Randy and that, we had, Rusev and Almas, and, that was a good match. Almas, I really enjoy. I really think Almas is really good. He's really shined ever since, obviously, Zelina came along, but his in-ring work is so good. And his match with Rusev was pretty good. He had that little spot at the end with Aiden English and Lana, and it seems they're kind of teasing something there, but it was good. Zelina and Lana got into a little bit of a brawl, as I said at the end, and I just like that they're not... Almost, when he debuted, I was so excited. I love the both of them. Him and Zelina are so good. But when he debuted, I was excited, and then it kind of got a bit stagnant with Sin Cara, and that I think Sin Cara had a little bit of an injury, and then they went in. They had their match on SmackDown the week before Extreme Rules was really, really good, and just... I say unexpected. I think it was just because of the lack of attention it got in the latter weeks, because, Sin Cara was hurt in that, and, but yeah, that was a really good match. Their match at Extreme Rules was pretty good too on the kickoff. That was pretty good, but Almas is just, he's just so crisp in the ring, and I think he can do such great things. But I like that they're not just, he had his match with AJ last week, by the way. So good. That was such a good match. I'm just liking how they're not completely rushing him too far. Like, he's getting these big matches, against the WWE Champion and Rusev and whatever it may be. But it seems like they're taking the slow approach to really build him to be a legit contender for, the WWE Championship one day. And I really like where they're going with that. I have no issue with Almas and Rusev, for that matter. Rusev is always good. So yeah, that was really good. So the segment with Paige announcing the SmackDown Live WWE Championship match with AJ, and then James Ellsworth comes out and she fires James Ellsworth. I feel like saying this may be a little bit unpopular, but James never really appealed to me. his stuff at the start with, when he fought AJ and stuff like that, it was fine. I'm not complaining, saying he shouldn't have been there or anything like that, but everyone went crazy, and I never really felt like that with James until when he got with Carmella. That was something else. Carmella, the thing with Carmella and James, though, is that I felt like Carmella always needed James. James didn't really need Carmella because James's role in WWE was never going to be long-term. You could see that. It was only, for the bit that it was. But Carmella, although she can cut a promo, I'm not saying she can't because she really can. I'm entertained by her. She is the type of character, in my opinion, that gets stale fast because it's been done so many times. Like, there's been so many blonde, bitchy girls that just think they're the greatest. I'm not saying it's a bad character because it works. I feel like you can only do so much with it before it becomes a little bit repetitive. So when she was with James, it added that element that she was missing. Of course, everything happened with the Money in the Bank, and she, tossed him to the side, whatever, and then Carmella goes in to cash in. Rest is history. When he come back, it was like, in my eyes, they tried to just continue on with what they done last year with Carmella and James, but it didn't really feel the same. Like, it felt like it's been either not enough time in between when he left and when he come back, or too much time. There was no real in between. It was like, it was just odd. And then, her matches with Asuka and that, without sounding like I'm complaining too much, I wasn't a fan of those matches. And that's not because Carmella won. I just think that Asuka she lost at Mania. But the problem I have is not her losing. Her losing was not the problem. Is that it didn't really it didn't achieve anything other than her losing. Like, Charlotte won and got cashed in on a couple of nights later on SmackDown, and Charlotte she's currently injured with whatever is going on with her, but it didn't really help Charlotte. It didn't hurt Charlotte by any means, but it didn't help her. So, I feel like the streak was built for so long, and then to have it end at WrestleMania, which it always should have ended at WrestleMania, never anywhere else. But it was the execution of where they go with Charlotte and where they go with Asuka. And, Asuka has just... She's not ruined by any chance. I don't think she's ruined. Every single person is rebuildable in wrestling. It's just how it happens. But Asuka, I think, has taken one too many losses in a consecutive amount. You know what I mean? She's... Yeah. So I just don't feel like her matches with Carmella helped her. It almost should have been Carmella and Asuka maybe met a little bit later. Maybe Carmella should have went through Naomi or whoever. But that being said, back to SmackDown. James, got fired by Paige. Samoa Joe comes out and attacks AJ and signs a contract for SummerSlam. Anyone who's followed TNA Impact knows their work will be nothing short of great. And I think the thing is with the WWE Championship is that it hasn't been main eventing pay-per-views, even with the Universal title not on the show. But that, keep in mind, I don't think that they've been show-ending quality matches. I just don't think they have. His matches with Shinsuke were all good. The Last Man Standing was great. But I think everyone kind of felt, I wouldn't say let down, because I don't think I was let down. They were all really good matches. I think everyone just held them to such a higher standard that not even they could reach that height. So none of those matches, quote unquote, closed the show, the main event. They were main event matches, they just didn't close the show. But Rusev and him didn't main event either, which is, you know what, I don't even think it felt like it could go on last. I don't think it could have. I'm not saying it was a bad match, because all of AJ Styles' matches are good matches. He doesn't have bad matches. He has great matches, he has fantastic matches, and he has good matches. That was one of his good matches. And as a whole of Extreme Rules, it was one of the better matches of Extreme Rules. But yeah, AJ and Samoa Joe, marquee match for SummerSlam. I think will be really good. There's not too much to say more on those two, because it's only just begun, of course, and Samoa is a tough dude, and AJ can literally have a good match with anyone at this point. So I'm excited. I think AJ will beat Samoa at SummerSlam. I don't think this is a one and done. I think they're going to have multiple matches. And I'm looking forward to them all. They should be all good. There was a tag team title tournament that started. New Day advanced. They beat Sanity. I'm not even going to get into that too much. It was fine. I'm assuming that the Usos will beat the Bar next week, and it'll be Usos New Day, with the winner fighting the Bludgeon Brothers at SummerSlam. I mean, we've seen those teams kind of go at it before, but I'm not too fussed. They're all good teams to me. SmackDown has a really solid tag team division. All of their teams are really good. So, yeah, but I don't know if they'll stop the Bludgeons. They seem to be going through quite a few teams since whenever they debuted last year or earlier this year, whenever it was. So, yeah, that should be fun. Becky Lynch beating Carmella, which is... I am one of the... I feel like 99% of my Twitter feed is we love Becky Lynch. And Becky's so good. With Becky, it feels like she legitimately has earned this title shot. She's been, building a lot of momentum. I feel like she's been on a winning streak, but I could be wrong. But I feel like she's just really going through everyone on SmackDown in the women's division, and her to beat Carmella tonight and go into SummerSlam. I'm hoping Becky can win at SummerSlam, but I can kind of sense maybe a cheap finish like Carmella normally does, and maybe they'll continue. Or Becky could, I really, really hope Becky can just win this, and then, Becky can move on and work with other people. Becky's first title reign when she was the first SmackDown Women's Champion was pretty good. I remember her just having matches generally with Bliss, and that was the kind of start of Alexa Bliss. But yeah, Becky beat Carmella. The match was fine. There was nothing incredible about it, but it was a good match. I enjoyed it. And then we went into the main event, and it was it was a segment, and it was the Miz and Mrs. Premier Party. The Miz, to me, I think to the general view, he's just leaps and bounds better than what he was 2 or 3 years ago, or even 4 years ago. But it's come so far. He is on a different level than a lot of people. His in-ring work is so good. He's always been a good talker. Him having Maurice last year before she was pregnant, they were doing some great stuff. Him with the Miztourage, and now he's gone back to SmackDown, and he's going to work with Bryan, and we've been waiting for Bryan and him for so long. I just SummerSlam for them, that match is just going to be incredible. Bryan is incredible. Miz is incredible. It's just going to be good. The segment on SmackDown was pretty good with the fake baby and stuff like that, and I enjoyed it. I'm excited for them at SummerSlam. Hoping it's not one... If they have a one-off match now, I hope they leave it and they go into other things, and then... Because I was always a fan of... I was hoping they could build this into WrestleMania, but then you have, Bryan with... You've read stuff about his contract status, and they're trying to get, all of his matches kind of, one after the other and getting through them just in case. But I think Bryan will stay just with stuff with, his wife Brie and with Total Divas and Bellas and blah, blah, blah. So I think he'll stay, and I hope he does. But yeah, him and Miz will have a fantastic match at SummerSlam. Could be a show stealer easily. So I just thought I'd go through SmackDown Live just to start off with, but as I said in my introductory episode to Wrestling Reverb, I'm a giant women's wrestling fan. Like I said, I've liked it as long as I can remember. It's always been up there as one of my favorite parts of wrestling. And obviously, there's some big news. Stephanie McMahon announcing the first ever all-women's pay-per-view event, WWE Evolution. It will happen on October 28th. I believe it's happening in Long Island, New York. I'm pretty sure. Either or other. I personally have waited to hear about, and see an all-women's exclusive event for so long. It's been a long time coming for the girls, because they have, you can tell that they're constantly, the women's division, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, have just, you can tell their commitment, their passion, their drive. Every one of those girls wants to get better and be better than the other, which is something that not all, but I feel like some of the guys lack. And that's, like as my point saying earlier, how the guys on Raw know their spots. I think the male superstars knew their spots. And I think the ladies had to earn their spots, and that's why they've gotten so good. And, with the addition of Ronda and stuff like that, it's just made, they are main event draws. So an all-women's event, to me, is long, I wouldn't say long overdue, but it's slightly overdue. It's time. October is a huge in-between stage in wrestling. Like, it's after SummerSlam, we're building back. Survivor Series is there, but, Survivor Series isn't as big as it used to be. And then you've got the Rumble, and again, it's all in between. So I think this is a good time of the year, just in general, to do this. I think the only other pay-per-view in October is the Super Showdown, which is happening in Melbourne, which I will be going to. Very excited about that. It's the first ever live broadcast from Australia for the WWE, so I'm super excited about that. So I think that's the only other pay-per-view in October. So the girls have a big spotlight, and Stephanie said about girls from the past, and I think they confirmed Trish and Lita. I think Beth was confirmed, so it should be a great event, and I'm very excited for it. Other big news, well, I guess not news, but I guess because of the internet talk about it, is, the possibility of the introduction of the women's tag team titles. And being a big fan of women, when I first heard about this, I had a thought in my head, and I was thinking, oh, women's tag team titles, that should be great. But the more and more I think about it, I'm kind of glad they're holding off on, well, it seems like they're holding off on women's tag team titles, because it's not the quality of the tag team championship matches that they would have. I think it's the quantity. Like, if you look at SmackDown, Raw, and NXT, you've got a group of however many women. But if you take away the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championships the programs that they involve with whoever. So you say at least 4 people. That's if it's 2 singles programs. And then you've got to have established teams. You've got to have the quality of those and not seem like they're just thrown together because there's women's tag titles. So these guys are a team now, with the exception of the Iconics and Mandy and Sonya and the Riots. And I guess to a certain degree, Sasha Banks and Bayley. You can't have a women's tag team division with 4 teams. Yes, I know you can go to NXT and whatever, but you don't want to oversaturate the main roster with too much talent because then other people lack from that. So I think the women's tag team titles, I think it's inevitable. It's happening. And I don't think it won't happen. I'm glad they're holding off from it now. Let other things simmer up to this pay-per-view, this all women's exclusive event. And yeah, just kind of let that happen later. Let that happen as an announcement on its own. Don't let it overshadow what's going on October 28th. So honestly, and if anyone wants to, get on Twitter and tweet at me and talk to me about that, because I know that my opinion's probably a little bit more sour than other people's on that. And I just want to get my point across this. I don't think it's a bad thing that they're introducing women's tag team championships. I just think not yet. Just hold off on that for a little while, just because of the quantity thing and stuff like that. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys and let me know what you think about it, because like I said, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm just giving my opinion. I don't really have so much of a topic for this episode because it is my first episode, but I want to talk about Extreme Rules. I briefly mentioned about Extreme Rules before, and I mean, that show was it was hard to get through. I mean, like I said, there wasn't a lot of compelling stories. There wasn't a lot going on for me in that show. The main event between Seth and Dolph was half hijacked by the audience. It wasn't completely hijacked. They weren't disinterested in the match, but they had more interest in counting down a buzzer, and then they took it off, and it was just, I mean, it did take away from the quality that they were trying to get. And it was, you think about this, it was the Intercontinental Championship, a title that, is being built so good lately. It's coming back from, went through all those down years and stuff like that. And I just think, you have it in a main event of a pay-per-view. Seth Rollins, who everybody has been saying, we want Seth in the Universal Championship picture. We want him in the main event. It wasn't the Universal Championship, it was the IC title, but he was in the main event. And Dolph, who, is very, very good. There's no way else of putting Dolph. He's just very, very good. They were both in the main event, and the crowd kind of, did that. And, everyone likes to go and complain and moan about Roman Reigns being in the main event of a pay-per-view of every show when he's not in the championship match. So they didn't. He wasn't in the main event, and you still soured on this main event, which was an Iron Man match, whatever. I understand it's a long show. I understand the show itself wasn't that wonderful. But you had your chance, and, it just seems like now when we get the inevitable, well, it is happening now as of Raw, Roman versus Brock, that is going to go on last, and that is going to be the main event. And when you guys get on Twitter, and I can be accused of this too sometimes, and getting on there and bitching and moaning that Roman Reigns is in the main event again, you had your chance with Seth and Dolph. And I was angry, and I don't, like I said in my introductory podcast episode, I'm not on here to bitch and complain, and it seems like I'm doing that right now. I understand. But I was watching Extreme Rules live with my sister and a friend, and I was visibly annoyed. So were they. And it's something that I've wanted for the IC title is one of my favourite championships in wrestling, in general. So to have this in the main event, you'd think people would be more excited about it. And I'm not saying they weren't excited, it's just they took the opportunity to count down a clock. So I won't go too much more into that because I want to talk about some positive things. I want to talk about Ronda Rousey. Ronda came in at the Royal Rumble in a controversial manner, the end of the Women's Royal Rumble, people complaining whether she was taking the spotlight away, like it should have been done the next night on Raw, which I understand. I think, thinking back, I think I was one of those people that I had no problem with Ronda, but the timing of her coming in may have been a little off, but you know what? It was the Women's Royal Rumble, they're in the main event, the end of a pay-per-view, Ronda Rousey comes out. People talk about it. And I get it. So I get why they did it. But yeah, Ronda. So she had the match at WrestleMania, the mixed tag. Fantastic match, by the way. That was probably my favorite match of Mania this year, with the exception of maybe I really enjoyed Charlotte and Asuka. But Ronda came in, proved that she has natural ability in pro wrestling. Is picking it up so fast. She goes into the Money in the Bank pay-per-view against Nia Jax, and this is saying something because I feel that match with Ronda was not only Ronda's best match, but I think it was Nia's best match. And Nia Jax has been doing this for a few years now, and to say that that's Ronda's second official WWE match, it was for the Raw Women's Championship, and to say that it was Ronda's best match, but Nia's best match as well, I just feel like that's saying something of the not only the work ethic that Nia's come leaps and bounds. Let's be honest, Nia has come leaps and bounds since her original stuff, and to say that is her best match, I just think that's something on both of those ladies, not just Nia and Ronda, but yeah, Ronda is just... She seems so... I'm trying to find the word, but she just seems like she puts in 110% in every aspect of this sport, of this profession. And it's you can tell, like, Ronda puts in her work, and she just wants to be the best. And, everything happened with Alexa Bliss cashing in, and now Ronda got suspended because she beat up officials and Kurt Angle and Bliss, and all great stuff. Ronda comes in at Extreme Rules, beats the tar out of Mickie James, and then Bliss retains, and it's going to be Bliss Ronda at SummerSlam, and I think that match could be really good. Anything with Ronda in it just seems like it's just golden rockets to go to the sky, and I think Bliss is such a great heel. I do think Bliss is a really good heel, so I think that match is one of the main events of SummerSlam, and I think that match will be, really, really good. Here's a question though, like, talking of Alexa Bliss, what is the sudden turn on Alexa Bliss? A year ago, or even maybe a little bit more than a year ago, Alexa Bliss could not do anything wrong. Everything she did, she was so over as a heel. She was so over getting, big, huge reactions, which I'm not saying she doesn't now, she still does, but it seems like the hate on Alexa is just everywhere lately. People are accusing her of not taking bumps and not being able to wrestle, and she's just, whatever. And I don't know, I feel like I'm in the middle of this. It's like, it seemed like the hate, I mean, obviously it was gradually coming along, but like the hate really took off when she won Money in the Bank. And the story that we're at now, obviously it was very necessary for her to win Money in the Bank, a lot of people were like, why? Why did she win Money in the Bank? And that's where I think the fire kind of started with everyone being like, Bliss is this, Bliss is that. And I read an interview a couple of days ago, and like I said, I'm indifferent, and I was more on the side of Bliss. To me, is pretty good. Like, I don't really have a problem with Alexa Bliss. And then I read this article, and it said, the interviewer asked Alexa Bliss, I'm paraphrasing here, so don't quote me, but it said, there's been a lot of people commenting on your in-ring style and how you avoid bumps and you do this. And Bliss's answer, again paraphrasing, was, I don't have to be good at wrestling because I'm a great heel, and great heels don't have to do that. And that kind of struck a weird chord with me. I was like, wait, so a great heel doesn't have to be good at wrestling? I was like, ooh, I don't know if that's the best thing for her to say, because it's just going to dig her hole even deeper, which it did. People were just blasting her for that comment. So I decided to do a little bit of research, knowing that I've been, thinking about doing these podcasts for quite some time now. And the last couple of days, I've gone back from her Alexa Bliss's NXT days to, some of her recent work. And her in-ring style has changed. She obviously is a face when she first came in as that little fairy thing that she was, whatever that was. She used to be a lot flashier as a face, which, is fine. You don't have to be flashy as a heel. But as she's, come up to the main roster and she started to find her groove with her character on the main roster, her in-ring quality has gone down. She avoids taking bigger bumps. She does. She purposely, you can tell she's landing on her feet. She's landing on her knees. She's avoid taking that impact, which is, I understand she's trying to be safe, but almost by avoiding the bumps, it seems like she's being unsafe. There was a spot that I watched a video of. I did some video watching. It was at a live event. It was Nia Jax, Sasha Banks, and Bliss. And Nia did the deal where she picks up Sasha for a Samoan drop, and then Bliss was on the second rope, and Nia walks over and gets Bliss up. And, does the whole, holds them both up and does a Samoan drop. Sasha took the bump, as you normally would, and Bliss landed directly on her feet and then fell down. And Sasha came down, Bliss came down directly on top of Sasha as she was, trying to spastically take the bump. Just all kinds of weird, I can't even explain it. I mean, I'll put the link on my Twitter to this video of the bump I'm talking about, and it's so awkward. It is so awkward. But I'm not judging her on one spot, everyone has their one little thing, but, she takes military press slams from Nia, and she lands directly on her feet, and then falls to her stomach. It just looks so tacky and awkward. And I'm starting to see why people are saying this. And this isn't me saying I dislike Alexa Bliss, because I don't dislike Alexa. But, my God, this lady needs to not say things that'll dig her deeper in a hole, for one, and maybe start being a little more safe with the way that you're trying to protect yourself. I understand protecting yourself, because although I've never been in the ring, I wouldn't want to get hurt, especially when Alexa's in the spot that she's been in for the last year and a half, I think I read something that she's been the SmackDown or Raw Women's Champion for 300 out of the last 300 days out of the last 600 or something bizarre like that, and she's way more than anyone else is since the original draft, the 2016 draft. So, with Bliss in the predominant role she's in, you don't want to get hurt, but I feel like as a professional wrestler, the more you think about getting hurt, like with anything, the more you think that something's going to happen, eventually it's going to come true, within protecting your bounds and stuff like that. Like, you can't go around, she's trained for this. She's trained to be a pro wrestler. Don't be unsafe about it, because you're not only going to hurt yourself, you're going to hurt someone else. And that's just me as a fan who's watched this for a long time. Like, I can just tell. And it's just, I don't know, I see people's point on Alexa Bliss. I think that's all I'll really say on her, and I invite people to hop on Twitter and talk to me about that, because, some people's opinion may be way different than mine. I may be way off. That's just me, but I'm not going to not say something just for the fact that, it might stir up a little bit of stuff. But, yeah, that's all I'll say on her. But yeah, so I think I'll end this one here, but like I said, I apologize for the rockiness of this episode. I'm kind of mix-mashing everything in this kind of episode, because I'm just kind of talking SummerSlam, I'm kind of talking Bliss, just a few different things. And a lot of my episodes of Wrestling Reverb will be very, just random little topics that are going on through the week of wrestling and stuff like that. But my next episode, I am going to try and stick to a topic just to see how that kind of goes. I've got a few in my head. I would love to hear from you on Twitter at Joshua Robinson, and that's a W instead of the U in Joshua. And I would love to hear you guys' suggestions on what I could talk about or what we could discuss. I would even like to maybe even do some of these podcasts live, and I'll get live tweets from you guys on Twitter, but that's very down the line when I can actually build this fan base and actually get myself a little more comfortable in doing these, because it's very awkward just to sit here at the moment and talk about wrestling on my own. However, once I get more of a fan base, I can talk to you guys and really get involved in this, because this is something that I'm really passionate about, and I really want to get way better at. I mean, way better at. I am so amateur in this, but I'm excited about this. I'm excited about where this could go. I'm excited about, the possibilities. And it's so weird sitting here and, like, the amount of relief I have just getting those thoughts and feelings out of my mouth. Just so I can, about Bliss, about Ronda, about SmackDown, about SummerSlam, about Extreme Rules, all of that stuff. I'm just glad that I can, release that off my back. I don't have to talk about that anymore. And it's like, gets it out into the world, and I hope I can, really gain some popularity, not popularity, that's not the word to use. I want to gain popularity over this. I want to be like more, just known, so I can talk about wrestling with more people. End of the day, I like talking about wrestling. And I like having other people's opinions. I like having discussions about things like this, because, like I said, I'm not right, I'm not wrong, I'm just doing me. I'm just doing what I think is good. But hit me up on Twitter. I'll leave my links in all the descriptions, and I really hope you guys can, catch on to this, and I hope it's kind of interesting to listen to someone else talk about wrestling and kind of see if someone I could relate to some people, and So thanks for everything, guys, and I will see you guys next time.